Hi, I'm Modern Synthesist, otherwise known as Mr. Pink, and I'm here to talk to you about exciting new Tyranids in the form of Von Ryan's Leaper, which got previewed today. You might be wondering what the heck is a Von Ryan's Leaper. Cheekily in the article on Warhammer community, they're like, who's Von Ryan? Who knows? Who cares? This is a video to tell you the history of the Von Ryan's Leaper, talk about what I think of the model, and then tell you about what this means for possible future Tyranid releases, because there's a couple of nuggets buried in here that could inform what's coming down the pipe. To start off, the first time we ever heard of something called Von Ryan's Leaper was in the 3rd edition Tyranid Codex. There was this evolution chart in it that showed how the different genuses kind of branched off of other genuses, and in that chart, it showed the Hormigaunt, and then it showed like a line leading down from the Hormigaunt to this Von Ryan's Leaper, question mark. But there was no real explanation for it. Next reference we got was in the Tyranid collectible card game, where Von Ryan's Leaper had its own card. It doesn't look exactly like the models that we got, but you can see those kind of like mantis claws. Notably, look at the color scheme. This really reminds me of Sherman Bishop's work. It's cool. Fast forward to last November, otherwise known as Nidvember 2022, and for Nidvember, Flynn had the great idea of coming up with kind of like a contest where you take prompts from that old trading card, collectible card game, because there's a bunch of cool Tyranids in there. And we use their names as prompts to create creatures for Nidvember. And one of the participants in Nidvember, Deshande, created this Von Ryan's Leaper inspired by the card. And you really need to go check this out on Deshande's profile, because he did some kind of visual trickery where the model is actually in a card and like it rotates and it's 3D, but it's phenomenal. Go check it out. So that was the most recent thing we saw for Von Ryan's Leaper until today, when Games Workshop showed us our next new Tyranid. Honestly, I was not expecting this at all. I was completely surprised, both that they would show us something as juicy as this. I thought they might just like meet out a few more things to tide us over until Warhammer Fest, but that they would show us like a brand new creature, brand new name, something we've never seen before. So let's jump into the actual model, and I'll let you know how I feel about it. A recent rumor had said that Games Workshop was getting rid of Death Leaper. The Death Leaper was going to be no more. I honestly think that, like they did with the Doom of Malantine when they turned it into the Neurothrope, they've taken Death Leaper and they've just made a squad of Death Leaper, which is so cool in these 3 models, because you see they have the mantis claws that you'd expect from Death Leaper, they have the multiple eyes that Death Leaper had, and also Death Leaper's rending claws were a bit more like Scything Talons, so you got that as well, and I'm pretty sure Death Leaper had like little mandibles. So yeah, all of those hallmarks you see in these models, and they are damn cool. Any Tyranid model, I'm going to find little bones to pick, but there are so many good things in. There's the fan service, or the like old hammer service, in the fact that they use the Von Ryan Leaper's name, which I'm going to talk about a bit more in the later part about what this tells us about future releases, but they use that name. If you take a look at the Scything Talons on these guys, I guess they're called Grasping Talons when Lictors have them. Very similar to what a Lictor would have. And if you look at like the forearm part of these Grasping Talons, that is like photocopy from the 2nd edition Lictor. It's a great throwback. I'm glad to see more feeder tendrils. I'm really glad about the chonky feet. We kind of saw those start with the Termagants, where they had like a chonkier leg. Definitely carried over here. I like that they have not only the hoof on the front, but they have the back like claw kind of like balancing the foot. I think that's a really great touch. We see what Hydra Malak and I have been asking for a while, which is a more variation on the Tyranid head types. We saw that with the Parasite Mortrex. Very weird, very unique head. And now this one as well is a departure from the standard gaunt, that like xenomorphic tube head. You got a bit of that here, but the armor plates are different. They have more of like the bulbous kind of exposed head, which we've seen a bit of on Lictors, more on like a Gene Stealer. The armor plates are a little different. One of them has a horn. Symbio Joe very smartly pointed out that 2 of them don't have horns and one of them has a horn. That could well be like a leader beast, that there could be like a squad leader or an alpha Von Ryan's Leaper or something. That's very different from traditional Tyranid head types. And you look head on their heads, again, they're not as tubular as the gaunt head. They're kind of like this kind of like flat and wide kind of head type. Still bulbous, but it actually reminds me of what we saw, the little glimpses we saw of the Screamer Killer in that Adepticon preview, where it had kind of like that flat and wider head type. So that's really interesting, that it's not just like slap a warrior head on it, slap a gaunt head. The only thing I would fault in the head is the mouth. Yeah, I love feeder tendrils. Yeah, I love mandibles. And I love freaky teeth. But do we need feeder tendrils, mandibles, and freaky teeth all slapped into the same mouth? It's a bit much, especially the teeth. Like the teeth, I think we should have just left the teeth out. Particularly when you look at the mandibles, they're cool. Like they're really cool how they come out, but it almost looks like the mandible is like a mini arm. And then they've like slapped the feeder tendrils on like the elbow of that like little mandible arm. I don't know. I just think it's too much, especially with the teeth in there. But you know, that can be modified. It can be converted. I think I'll honestly just take out the teeth and try to find a way to fit the mandibles in there with the tentacles. Still cool. Another thing that I didn't love about these is that when we saw these in the Adepticon trailer, and I am guilty of identifying this thing as a Lictor. I thought that thing was a Lictor because of the mantis grasping claw. So not a Lictor, a Von Ryan's Leaper. When we saw it, it looked like it just had scything talons on the lower hands and not rending claws. And when we talked in our last creature conference with Highfleet Moloch and Hydra, Moloch mentioned that he really loves Lictors having rending claws because he's made a really good point that when a Tyranid has rending claws, they look more like hands, they look more humanoid, or like intelligent, kind of like calculating, solving problems, whereas it looks more bestial when they just have these claws. Though these scything talons are nice, I think this is what a different rumor mentioned when they were talking about Prime, and they said the new design for scything talons is Chef's Kiss. I think that what we're seeing here is a good indication of what new scything talons might look like. Not sure I'm sold. The talon part looks cool. I don't know, but the armor plate's just kind of like wrapping around it and the talon poking out the end. A little weird for me. Different, interesting, but I'm with Moloch. I really want something like this to have also rending claws to give that kind of more intelligent, more calculating, more solving vibe to them. These claws are nice. Like these scything talons, they're okay. Like they're interesting, they're different. They don't look like a standard scything talon. They look more hook-like. I think I'll give this guy claws. Another little bone that I have. What is going on with the creature's back? It's like the back carapace, and you have the tail carapace, and then in between you have this little weird carapace plate shoved in. I think someone on our Discord had said that maybe that's like, this is like a multi-part like monopose model, and like the two claw arms are on that piece and it slots into the back, but it just is totally out of place for me. It looks kind of like blocky in there. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to observe is when you look at these, the legs on these, if you look at like the inside of the legs where like the pelvis is and how that all attaches, that all looks very continuous. And like if you look even on the side view where the tail comes up to the leg, that doesn't look that posable to me. Like it looks like this is very much monopose, and those legs might be like flush part of like the tail or something like that. So you might have to like assemble weird parts to get it together. If you look at their backs, they've got the same kind of spore chimney like growths that we saw in the Termagants. So it looks like more and more Tyranids are going to be having those now. The poses are pretty good. Like they look like something that could leap. I'm most taken with the pose of the like leader beast, let's say, with the horn. Like he looks coiled, he looks ready to strike. The runny ones, they suffer from the angle chosen to show them on the Warhammer community site. I think they could be pretty good. Also, they suffer from what Marco has, Highfleet Moloch has identified, with just like having their scything talons poking out the sides like ski poles. You could do a little more with that pose. One other thing I wanted to mention about this preview is the name, Von Ryan's Leaper. So with that name, we see Games Workshop maybe not necessarily moving away, but certainly taking a slightly different track for naming some of their Tyranids. If you haven't heard the Throne of Command, I think it is, podcast with Andy Chambers, you should really go and listen to it. It's an excellent podcast where they interview Andy Chambers about the genesis of Tyranids, like in 2nd edition and leading into 3rd edition, how they chose different like naming conventions and stuff like that. And what he mentions in that is that when they initially started naming the Tyranids, they were naming them from like more of a prey angle. Like what would their prey call them? So you had a grabber slasher, you had a hunter seeker, you had a screamer killer, famously. I can't remember what else they had. There's other ones like that. And then in the 3rd edition codex, you saw things like Old One-Eye or Red Terror, or, oh no, we didn't get the Doom yet, but later on we saw the Doom of Malantai, which all of those are more kind of like how someone who had suffered from one of these creatures had come and ravaged the people, how they would call it. And I've always loved that. I wrote I don't know if you remember, back on Highfleet Moloch's website, there was a story, I think it was called Malin's Bane, and it was about a lictor who hunted this dude named Malin. And I just always liked that kind of naming convention. These things got their names from the horrific acts that they committed, rather than the more kind of Latinate naming conventions. This is what Andy Chambers mentioned, that they could only do so many of those grabber slasher, hunter seeker, grabber slayer, whatever names, before they kind of ran out of things to call them. So they went to more of like a pseudo-Latinate thing where they called them like the Lictor, the Carnifex. So we've seen a lot of those. With these, with Von Ryan's Leapers, they seem to be moving, maybe not away from the Latinate naming convention, but introducing more of those kind of like prey-based naming conventions, which I really like. So yeah, that's really cool. That's a really cool element of how they name these things. I really like that. But yeah, like they're solid models. A little bit of room for improvement, but damn fine start. I'm really excited to get my hands on them. I think that those heads can be excellent with a little bit of tweaking. The legs are perfect for me. Those scything talon, mantis, whatever claws, perfect. This is a super strong start to the Tyranid release. Termagants, they were like an updated Termagant. They look great. You can take a little bit of like clues from the design language there, but here we're seeing a lot more. Looking forward to what future releases could be and what kind of like little nuggets of hints we could glean from this release. What I wanted to note is that there was that one rumor that mentioned that, I think it was the April Fool's rumor, mentioned that Hormagaunts had gotten a glow up, that their middle limbs had gotten like more like stabby. They've got these awesome like big talons over top. It mentioned that they were raptor-like, and it also said that they had mandibles. I honestly wonder if someone saw these and thought that these were a Hormagaunt glow up, because like we saw in that chart at the beginning, Von Ryan's Leaper was meant to be like an evolution of Hormagaunts, and I think that's really cool. If a Hormagaunt turned into a warrior, this is what they would look like, versus like a Termagant turning into a warrior. So I hope that Games Workshop preserved that part of the lore, where these things are supposed to be outgrowths of Hormagaunts, and that when we do get Hormagaunts, it's like a downsized version of Von Ryan's Leaper, because these would look sweet as Hormagaunts. So I hope that that is still like in their kind of fluff, that maybe a Termagant evolves into a warrior and then a Hormagaunt evolves into a Von Ryan's Leaper. That would be really sweet. Also, the fact that they use the Von Ryan's Leaper name and the fact that that name comes from the collectible card game, it could be an endorsement for another April Fool's rumor we saw, which was the Viragon, that thing that's supposed to look like the Venom Crawler that has effectively a fly keyword and like it drops like a marker that makes objectives harder to hold. It was spidery described as. That one is called the Viragon, which was another name from the collectible card game. And some people said, oh, I don't believe that at all, because that just sounds like someone who's a Tyranid lore buff and remembers the collectible card game and just pulled that name. The fact that they used this name, Von Ryan's Leaper, from the collectible card game could be an indication that we're in store for more collectible card game names. So maybe the Viragon's a real thing. Maybe that's its actual name, and Games Workshop hasn't forgotten about the card game, but they're still mining that IP, which is cool, and also a bit of a like a old hammer nod to folks who have been in the collecting Tyranids for a long time. Nostalgia seems to be alive and well in the Tyranid line from this, from the name, from the way they did those grasping talons. Also, if you actually read the article, I didn't at first, and some people who were like commenting and sending me messages clearly didn't read the article either. That's fine. I just looked at the pretty pictures. I was like, maybe I should read this article. When I first saw these, I was like, okay, they're replacing Lictors, because maybe Lictor is a hard thing to train. And they're going to call them Von Ryan's Leapers. And you're going to get 3 plastic Lictors in a squad, whatever. However, when you read the article, it says that it actually identifies Lictors several times in the article. It says, yeah, these are kind of like Lictors, but unlike Lictors, which are like a solo hunter, these ones hunt in packs. And that's like a pretty good indication to me that the Lictor is still alive and well. That why would Games Workshop refer to the Lictor in the Warhammer community article on these if they weren't going to release a Lictor? Some have hypothesized that this might be a dual kit with the Lictor. Certainly when you look at the leader one with the horn on it, the fact that it's not really running and leaping, it looks more like what you would expect from a Lictor. However, like Marco mentioned, it doesn't have rending claws. Lictors have always been known to have rending claws. Hopefully they keep those. And also, if you believe the April Fool's rumor, which, you know, we're maybe getting a little bit of ammunition to want to believe it, it said that Lictors had a longer tail. So unless this is a dual kit that comes with a different tail for Lictors, these tails are very short and stumpy. So I hope that the April Fool's rumors are true and that we're getting longer tails on them. Also, it said that there was multiple head options for the Lictor. This could be confused as that because there are multiple head options in this kit. I'm personally hoping that the Lictor is a completely different kit, that it does have multiple head options, that it comes one to a box, and that it's a little bit bigger than these guys, because these guys look like they would be kind of warrior size. But honestly, you know what? If you didn't give me a Lictor, you gave me one of these Von Ryan Leapers, that one that's on the tactical rock with its cool horn and stuff, I could be happy. That could be a decent Lictor for me. Going forward, we're hoping for a Lictor. Maybe that'll be in like a later wave or something like that. I think there's still hope for a Lictor out there. It hasn't been replaced by these. And any concerns that I had that they weren't going to take Tyranids in a cool, different, interesting, but still very true to the source material direction has kind of been alleviated by this. I'm really happy with what I'm seeing. These are fantastic models. And as other people have said, this is like a first day insta pickup for me. So great work. And we have a lot to be excited about, Hive siblings. Let's look forward to the next release. Let me know what you think of Von Ryan's Leapers in the comments below. Please make sure that if you're not already subscribed, subscribe to my channel, that you like this video. And if you like the kind of videos that I'm creating, I have a Patreon. Please consider supporting me there. There's no tiers or anything. You can give $1, you can give whatever you want. And I put previews for videos, polls, that kind of stuff up there. Do some contests on there. Make sure to check that out. The link is in the description below. I've also linked to other elements that I talked about in this video if you want to look at the card for Von Ryan's Leaper. If you want to check out Shandy's really cool Von Ryan's Leaper, you can find those in the description. So thanks a lot, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.